There are more viruses on Earth than stars in the observable universe, more than every animal, plant, and bacterium combined. They drift in ocean water, hide in soil, and float invisibly through the air we breathe every single day. Yet almost none of them can be seen without specialized equipment. This is the story of the smallest, strangest, and most successful entities in the history of life. A virus is a submicroscopic infectious agent, so small it can only reproduce inside the living cells of another organism. It cannot eat, grow, or move on its own. Instead, it hijacks a host cell's machinery, forcing it to manufacture thousands of new viral copies. Viruses infect everything from animals and plants to bacteria and archaea, making them the ultimate universal parasite. In 1892, Russian scientist Dmitry Ivanovsky published a paper describing a mysterious pathogen infecting tobacco plants, one that passed through filters fine enough to trap ordinary bacteria. 6 years later, in 1898, Martinus Beijerinck confirmed the discovery of the tobacco mosaic virus. It was the first time humanity had glimpsed evidence of a life form smaller than any bacterium ever recorded. That discovery launched an entire scientific discipline, virology, a specialized branch of microbiology dedicated to studying these hidden agents. More than a century later, scientists have formally described over 16,000 virus species. Yet researchers believe this represents only a tiny fraction of the millions of viruses that actually exist across Earth's ecosystems, most still completely unknown to science. Outside a host cell, a virus exists as an independent particle called a virion. Each one carries genetic material, either DNA or RNA, encoding the instructions for building more virus. That genetic core is wrapped in a protective protein shell called a capsid, and some viruses add an outer envelope of lipids stolen from their host. Their shapes range from simple helical rods to intricate icosahedral geometry. Scale is almost impossible to comprehend. Most virus particles are roughly 1/100th the size of an average bacterium, far too small to be seen with any ordinary optical microscope. It took the invention of the electron microscope for humans to finally see the shapes of these particles directly. Before that, viruses were known only through the disease and destruction they left behind. The word itself is ancient. Virus comes from the Latin virus, meaning poison or noxious fluid, sharing roots with the Sanskrit word for poison and the ancient Greek ios. English speakers first used the word in 1398, and the meaning shifted to agent that causes infectious disease by 1728, more than 160 years before anyone actually discovered one. The now familiar term viral only emerged in 1948. But where did viruses themselves come from? Because they leave no fossils, scientists cannot dig up direct evidence of their ancient past. Instead, researchers rely on molecular techniques, tracing genetic fragments that viruses have inserted into host genomes over millions of years. This buried code, passed down through generations, gives paleovirologists a rare window into infections that occurred long before written history. One leading theory, the regressive hypothesis, suggests viruses were once free-living cells that became parasites inside larger organisms. Over countless generations, genes they no longer needed for independent survival were gradually lost. Modern bacteria like Rickettsia and Chlamydia support this idea, since they too can only reproduce inside host cells, hinting at how far parasitic dependence can strip away a genome. A second theory proposes the opposite journey, that viruses arose from fragments of DNA or RNA that broke free from a larger organism's genome entirely. Some scientists believe certain viruses evolved from plasmids, small loops of DNA capable of moving between cells. In this view, viruses were never independent life at all, but escaped genetic material that learned to replicate on its own terms. Whatever their origin, viruses became a powerful evolutionary force. By moving genetic material between organisms, a process called horizontal gene transfer, they increase genetic diversity in ways strikingly similar to sexual reproduction. This constant genetic shuffling has helped shape the evolution of countless species. It's a reminder that these tiny invaders are not just destroyers, but architects of biological change. This raises an unsettling question debated by biologists for over a century: are viruses even alive? They carry genetic material, reproduce, and evolve through natural selection, all hallmarks of life. But they lack a cell structure, cannot generate their own energy, and are utterly helpless without a host. Scientists have settled on an eerie compromise, describing viruses as organisms at the edge of life. However they came to be, viruses have mastered the art of spreading. Some travel through vectors, disease-carrying organisms that ferry them from host to host. Aphids and other sap-feeding insects transmit viruses between plants, while blood-sucking insects carry viral disease through animal populations. It's an ancient, efficient delivery system that predates modern medicine by millions of years. Many of history's deadliest viruses spread simply through the air, launched by a single cough or sneeze. Influenza, SARS-CoV-2, chickenpox, smallpox, and measles all travel this way, riding on tiny respiratory droplets into new lungs. This airborne strategy has made these particular viruses some of the most historically devastating forces ever to move through human populations. Other viruses take a far less glamorous route. Norovirus and rotavirus, the leading causes of viral gastroenteritis, spread through the fecal-oral route, passed by contaminated hands, food, or water. Norovirus is especially formidable. Fewer than 100 viral particles are needed to cause infection in a human being, making outbreaks on cruise ships and in crowded institutions notoriously difficult to contain. Some viruses require the most intimate contact of all. HIV spreads through sexual contact and exposure to infected blood, a transmission pathway that fueled one of the most devastating pandemics of the modern era. Every virus has what scientists call a host range, narrow for those specialized to only a few species, broad for those capable of infecting many hosts across the animal kingdom. When a virus invades, the body's immune system usually mounts a response strong enough to eliminate it entirely. Vaccines harness this same defense, training the immune system to recognize a threat before real infection ever occurs. But some viruses are master evaders. HIV, HPV, and viral hepatitis can slip past these defenses altogether, settling in for chronic, long-term infections that can last a lifetime. To fight back, scientists have developed roughly 100 individual antiviral drugs and combinations used around the world today. Each one represents decades of research into an enemy too small to see, too strange to classify, and too essential to evolution to ignore. From tobacco fields in 1892 to laboratories today, the story of the virus is still being written, one discovery at a time. If this hidden world fascinated you, subscribe for more true science stories.